The pair were discussing a debate within the cabinet over Brexit negotiations as Theresa May is set to meet David Davis to agree the government's final backstop plan to avoid a hard border in Northern Ireland. David Davis is expected to push for a firm end date to be included in the text. Speaking on Good Morning Britain, leading Brexiteer Ian Duncan-Smith pledged the government would be united by the time of the EU summit towards the end of June. Responding to claims from Remainer MP Chuka Umunna that government was negotiating with itself, Mr. Duncan-Smith said, "Well, while we are on parties negotiating with themselves," the Labour MP quickly cut off the Tory, pointing out they were not in government, before Mr. Duncan-Smith clarified his point. The Brexiteer said, "My point is, you know, and I know, and the public must know that these issues are still going to ferment through because there are big disagreements in them." The Labour Party has now changed its position for about the 10th time on the issue, hence the spectacle of Prime Minister's questions, where each is asking them a question about what their position is. I think it is quite straightforward. At the end of the day, the decision-making has to rest with politicians. David Davis is the chief negotiator and he has to make this decision in conjunction with her, and the cabinet has to back them over it. The Labour Remainer stepped in, pointing out divisions within the cabinet. He said, "You have got Philip Hammond, Greg Clark, and a number of others, and then you have got Liam Fox, David Davis, and they can't agree. So if you have not been able to produce a blueprint for our future after we're supposed to be leaving the European Union," Mr. Duncan-Smith then made a bold pledge to the Labour MP if the cabinet was not agreed by the EU summit towards the end of June. He said, "I tell you what, I will give you dinner or lunch at some point if, by the June Council, they haven't agreed and don't agree on a position that they go forward to, which will include a time-limited point." The Labour MP quickly responded, asking where the Tory MP was taking him. He said, "So is this Nando's or?" The pair joked before Mr. Duncan-Smith responded by saying, "Probably. The Prime Minister has clashed with the Brexit Secretary over plans for a backstop customs system for Northern Ireland, which he claims must be time-limited." Mr. Davis was believed to be among ministers critical of Mrs. May's draft document, which sets out a blueprint for a temporary customs union, as it did not outline when fallback mechanisms would expire, if the technology for a frictionless border is not ready by the end of the transition period in December 2020. On time limits, I think the Prime Minister has already made public the fact that we expect to put a time limit on the backstop proposal, Mr. Davis said after delivering a speech in Westminster. He also played down suggestions that he could quit over the row. Asked if he could stay in his job if the proposals did not have his explicit approval, Mr. Davis said, "That's a question I think for the Prime Minister, to be honest.